Owen Reeves walked down the metal corridor of Station Atlas 9, with his grandfather's old canvas pack slung over one shoulder. The bag looked out of place against the glowing walls and floating holographic signs. Everything around him hummed with power and advanced technology. Ships docked and undocked through transparent energy fields. Aliens of a dozen species moved past him wearing suits that could probably survive a supernova. He found the briefing room where his new team waited. 5 faces turned toward him when the door slid open with a soft hiss. 4 were alien. 1 was human like him, but she wore a sleek combat suit that made her look like she'd stepped out of a military advertisement. "You must be the human edition," said a tall reptilian creature with bronze scales and yellow eyes. His voice came out harsh and commanding. "I am Commander Halrix. We leave for Redstone in 6 hours. Equipment inspection begins now." The other team members stood around a long table covered with weapons and gear that glowed, hummed, and occasionally sparked with energy. Owen had never seen such advanced equipment outside of training videos. Specialist Una went first. She was made of pure light energy contained in a vaguely humanoid form. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. Plasma rifle with triple core acceleration, range of 3 kilometers. Energy shield projector rated for Class 7 impacts. Holographic camouflage suit with thermal masking. She placed each item on the table with obvious pride. Tactician Bross stepped forward next. The insectoid alien had 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the room's light in rainbow patterns. Tactical analysis computer with real-time combat projections. Electromagnetic pulse grenades. Nanofiber climbing gear rated for 5-ton loads. Sensor suite capable of detecting heartbeats through 12 meters of solid rock. Engineer Priya spread her feathered wings slightly as she moved to the table. Her beak clicked as she spoke. Molecular bonding tool for field repairs. Anti-gravity propulsion boots. Communication array with quantum encryption. Automated medical drone. Each device looked more impressive than the last. The other human, Lieutenant Kara, barely glanced at Owen as she displayed her arsenal. Standard Coalition assault package. Smart bullets, adaptive armor, neural interface helmet. Nothing fancy, but it works. Then everyone looked at Owen. He set his canvas pack on the table and untied the leather straps that held it closed. The sound seemed loud in the quiet room. He pulled out items one by one. A set of black clothes made from simple cotton and synthetic blend. Several knives with plain steel blades wrapped in cloth. A coil of hemp rope. Small ceramic containers filled with powder. Metal stars with sharpened points. Wooden handles with chains attached. A few small mirrors. Some thin metal picks. A bamboo flute. The silence lasted about 3 seconds before Bross started making a clicking sound. It took Owen a moment to realize the insectoid was laughing. Is this a joke? Halrix picked up one of the knives and examined it like he'd found something diseased. This is just metal. Sharpened metal. No power source. No smart targeting, nothing. Una's light form flickered with what might have been amusement. Those look like museum pieces. Are humans still using these in combat? The rope is particularly amusing, Bross said, his mandibles clicking together. My sensors indicate it's organic fiber. It will degrade, absorb moisture, and has a breaking strength far below modern synthetic alternatives. He tilted his head in that unsettling insect way. I calculate your survival probability on this mission at approximately 3%. Kara shook her head. Command must be desperate if they're sending someone with gear from the medieval period. No offense, but you're going to get us all killed. Owen said nothing. He carefully arranged his equipment on the table, while the others continued to comment and laugh. His jaw tightened slightly, but his hands remained steady. Priya leaned closer, her bright eyes curious despite the mockery from the others. Why do you carry these items? Surely Earth has access to modern weapons. These have been used by my people for over 1,000 years, Owen said quietly. My grandfather taught me. His teacher taught him. The line goes back centuries. Exactly, Halrix said with a snort. Centuries old. We have weapons developed last month that can level a building. You have pointed sticks and fancy rope. The mission brief said elite operations, Bross added, reviewing data on a floating screen only he could see. I question whether humans understand what that term means if this is what they consider elite equipment. Owen finished arranging his gear and looked up at the commander. When do we run the combat simulation? Halrix's yellow eyes gleamed. Eager to embarrass yourself? Fine. Everyone to the training deck. The simulation room could create any environment and any enemy using hard-light holograms and force fields. It felt real, looked real, and hurt real if you made mistakes. Halrix programmed a standard infiltration scenario. The team would enter an enemy facility, eliminate hostiles, and extract with a target package. They ran the drill. Yuna's plasma fire tore through holographic enemies. Bros calculated angles and predicted movements. Priya's drones provided support. Kara moved efficiently through the space. Halrix coordinated everything with practiced precision. Owen moved through the simulation using his knives and throwing stars. Except the system didn't register them. His blades passed through enemies without causing damage. His smoke powder didn't register as concealment. His rope couldn't interact with the hard-light constructs properly. The team completed the mission in 8 minutes. Owen's contribution was listed as 0. The system is designed for modern weapons, Priya explained, though her tone suggested she was trying to be kind. Your equipment is too primitive for it to recognize. More laughter from Bros. Even Kara smirked. Owen packed his gear away without comment. His face showed nothing, but something burned behind his dark eyes. That evening, while the others reviewed tactical data and tested their equipment, Owen found an empty cargo bay. He changed into his black clothes and began moving through practiced forms. His body flowed like water, each motion precise and controlled. He breathed in patterns his grandfather had taught him. Strike, spin, crouch, rise, throw. A shadow appeared in the doorway. Yuna's light form cast no shadow of its own, but she watched him practice. "Why do you still train with those methods?" she asked. "When you know they're inferior." Owen caught the knife he'd thrown at a practice target 20 meters away. It had struck exactly center. "I don't know they're inferior. I know they're different. I know they've kept humans alive for a very long time, but technology makes us stronger, faster, more capable. Maybe." Owen wiped sweat from his forehead. "Or maybe it makes us dependent." Yuna said nothing more, but she watched him practice for several minutes before drifting away. Later that night, Owen sat with his gear spread before him in his quarters. He checked every blade's edge, tested every knot in his rope, examined every tool with careful attention. These items wouldn't fail him because they couldn't fail. They had no power source to drain, no computer to crash, no complex system to malfunction. They were simple, and they were his. In 6 hours, they would board the ship for Redstone. In 6 hours, he would have a chance to prove that old methods still had value. He just needed them to give him that chance. The planet Redstone filled the viewport like a massive red eye. Volcanic activity covered half the surface in glowing cracks. Ash clouds swirled through the atmosphere in gray spirals. Even from orbit, the place looked angry. Owen stood in the briefing room aboard the Vanguard with the rest of the team. Commander Halrix pulled up a holographic display that showed detailed scans of their target area. "The enemy has established a fortress inside an ancient caldera here." Halrix pointed to a crater near the equator. "Intelligence indicates they're developing weapons that could shift the balance of power in this sector. Our mission is to infiltrate the facility and retrieve the complete schematics from their research vault." Bros studied the data flowing across his personal screens. The environment shows significant volcanic activity and magnetic interference. However, my analysis indicates these factors remain within acceptable parameters for Coalition equipment. What about these magnetic readings? Priya traced a wingtip across fluctuating numbers. They seem unusually high. Standard for volcanic planets, Kara said dismissively. Our gear is rated for much worse. The enemy has basic electronic countermeasures, nothing we haven't seen before. Halrix nodded. Yuna, your plasma weapons will handle any direct confrontations. Bros will coordinate tactical movements. Priya keeps our equipment running. Kara provides backup firepower. Owen. He glanced at the human sitting quietly in the corner. Try not to get in the way. Owen met the commander's eyes but said nothing. They descended through Redstone's atmosphere 3 hours later. The transport shook as it hit thermal layers. Warning lights flashed on the console. Priya gripped the controls with her taloned feet while her hands worked the stabilizers. Turbulence is stronger than predicted, she called out. Magnetic readings are increasing. Can we land safely? Halrix demanded. Yes, but the interference is higher than the briefing data suggested. They touched down in a valley 10 kilometers from the target. Red dust billowed around them as the landing gear made contact. The moment the door opened, heat rolled into the ship like a physical force. Bros was the first out, his forearms checking his equipment. All systems functioning normally. The magnetic interference is present but manageable. The team moved out in standard formation. Their equipment made them look like warriors from a future war. Energy shields shimmered. Weapons gleamed. Sensor displays glowed inside helmet visors. Owen walked behind them wearing his black clothes and carrying his canvas pack. He looked like someone who'd gotten lost on the way to a costume party. They reached the first checkpoint after 2 hours of hiking through volcanic rock fields. Enemy sensors swept the area in predictable patterns. Bros launched a small drone that emitted a counter frequency. The enemy sensors went dark. Basic technology, Una observed. This will be easier than expected. Owen crouched near a boulder and studied the terrain ahead. There's a canyon route to the east. Better cover and the walls will mask our heat signatures. Halrix barely glanced at him. We take the direct path. Our equipment can handle any detection systems they have. They continued forward. The team reached a second checkpoint as the sun began to set. This time the electronic warfare took longer to work. Bros had to recalibrate his countermeasures twice. The interference is definitely increasing, Priya said, checking her diagnostic tools. I'm seeing fluctuations in power distribution across all systems. Everything still works though, right? Kara asked. Yes, just not as efficiently as it should. Owen had moved to a higher position. He watched the fortress in the distance through a simple optical scope. No electronics, just glass and metal. The enemy patrols follow a timing pattern. Every 18 minutes there's a gap in coverage on the northern approach. We have sensor data for that, Bros replied without looking up from his displays. Your visual observations are unnecessary. The sensors might not be accounting for the patrol timing. I've counted 3 cycles now. Halrix waved a clawed hand dismissively. We'll use the approach route Bros calculated. Set up camp here. We move at dawn. The team established a perimeter, using electronic sensors that would alert them to any approaching threats. Force fields created a protective barrier. Climate control units made a comfortable zone inside the harsh environment. Owen sat outside the comfortable area, eating a simple meal from his pack. He closed his eyes and focused on his breathing. In, hold out. The meditation technique his grandfather had taught him cleared his mind and sharpened his senses. Something felt wrong. Not anything he could name or point to. Just a feeling in his gut that made his shoulders tense. He stood and walked to where Halrix was reviewing the next day's approach with Bros. Commander, I think there's something out there. Halrix looked at him like he'd said the sky was purple. The sensors show nothing. I know, but I feel like we're being watched. Bros made that clicking laugh again. You feel it? How scientific. My instruments, which can detect a heartbeat from kilometers away, show the area is clear. But please, trust your feelings instead. Owen started to respond, but stopped. Instead, he moved to the camp's edge and crouched low. He stayed motionless, barely breathing, just listening and watching. The others went back to their planning. Kara cleaned her weapon. Una recharged her energy reserves. Priya ran final diagnostics on everyone's gear. Then Owen saw it. A slight shift in the darkness. A reflection where there shouldn't be one. Movement that wasn't wind. Someone's out there, he said quietly but firmly. 200 meters approaching from the northwest. The sensors still show nothing, Bros insisted. Then your sensors are wrong. Halrix started to argue, but Owen held up a hand for silence. The gesture was so confident that the commander actually stopped talking. They waited. 30 seconds passed, a minute. Then they all heard it. The soft scrape of boots on rock, voices speaking in low tones, equipment rattling. An enemy patrol passed, less than 50 meters from their position, completely undetected by the electronic sensors. If Owen hadn't raised the alarm, if the team hadn't shut down all their lights and noise, the patrol would have walked right into them. The enemy moved past and disappeared into the darkness. Una's light dimmed to almost nothing, but Owen could still sense her looking at him. How did you know? I watched the dust patterns, listened to the sound the wind makes. Something about it wasn't natural. Bros checked his sensor data again. This makes no sense. The equipment should have detected them easily. Maybe the magnetic interference is worse than we thought, Priya suggested. Or maybe they have better countermeasures than intelligence reported. Halric stared at Owen for a long moment. You saved us from a premature engagement. That was useful. It wasn't quite respect, but it wasn't mockery either. They kept watch in shifts through the night. Owen took the last watch before dawn. He sat cross-legged on a flat rock, eyes scanning the darkness, ears catching every sound. Yuna drifted over to sit beside him. She didn't need sleep like organic beings. Where did you learn to sense things like that? She asked. My grandfather said a ninja must become part of the environment. Not fighting against it, but flowing with it. You feel when something disrupts the natural flow. That sounds more like philosophy than military training. Maybe they're the same thing. Yuna was quiet for a while. The others think your equipment is useless. I know. What do you think? Owen picked up one of his knives and tested the edge with his thumb. I think every tool has a purpose. I think technology is powerful but not perfect. I think there's a reason humans used these methods for centuries before we reached the stars. Which is, they work. As the sun rose over Redstone's tortured landscape, the team prepared to move. The fortress loomed in the distance like a metal tumor on the planet's surface. Smoke and steam rose from vents around it. Owen checked his gear one more time. Each blade sharp, each tool ready. His body loose and prepared. Halrix approached him while the others finished packing. Your instincts last night were sound. Keep alert. If you notice anything else, inform me immediately. Yes, Commander. But Owen, Halrix's yellow eyes narrowed. When we engage the enemy, stay behind the rest of us. We can't waste time protecting someone with inadequate weapons. Owen nodded. But something in his expression suggested he had no intention of needing protection. The team moved out toward the fortress as magnetic readings continued to climb. The fortress looked even more imposing up close. Metal walls rose from volcanic rock like teeth. Guard towers bristled with weapons. Heat waves distorted the air above it. Owen crouched behind a boulder field with the rest of the team. They were 500 meters from the outer perimeter. This was the point of no return. Bros analyzed the defenses with his tactical computer. I count 47 automated weapon systems, 23 guard positions, and continuous sensor sweeps. However, I have mapped 3 weak points in their coverage. We can exploit them with coordinated electronic warfare. Magnetic readings are concerning me, Priya said, adjusting her equipment for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. They're 30% higher than any planet in the database. I'm having to constantly recalibrate just to keep systems stable. Kara checked her smart rifle. Everything's still working, though. We proceed as planned. Halric studied the fortress through an enhanced visor. The enemy clearly invested in this location, which means what they're developing is valuable. We get in, get the schematics, get out. Yuna, prepare to lead the breach. Bros, start your electronic countermeasures on my mark. Owen said nothing, but his hand rested on one of his knives. That uncomfortable feeling from last night had returned, stronger now. Something was very wrong here, Commander, he started to say. A low hum filled the air. It vibrated in Owen's chest and made his teeth ache. Every member of the team looked around, trying to identify the source. Then they saw it. The top of the fortress split open like a flower. A massive device rose from inside, ancient and alien, and definitely not built by the current occupants. It looked like technology from a species that had died out long before any of their civilizations had discovered fire. What is that? Yuna's voice came out uncertain for the first time. The device activated. A pulse of electromagnetic energy exploded outward in a visible wave of distortion. It washed over the team like a tsunami. Every piece of advanced technology died instantly. Yuna's plasma rifle became a useless lump of metal. The glow inside the weapon just vanished like someone had blown out a candle. She tried to activate it, but nothing happened. Not even a spark. Bros's tactical computer went dark. All 4 of his hands frantically worked the controls. Nothing responded. His sensor suite, his communication system, his analytical tools, everything just stopped working. Priya's wings spread in panic as her equipment failed. The anti-gravity boots locked in place, making her stumble. Her molecular tools were inert. Her medical drone fell from the air and crashed on the rocks. Kara's smart rifle became stupid. The targeting system went blank. The ammunition counter disappeared. Her helmet display went dark. She pulled it off and threw it aside, her face pale. Halrix tried to move and discovered his advanced combat armor had locked up. The powered joints froze. The protective servos that enhanced his strength became a prison. He couldn't move his arms or legs more than a few centimeters. Only Owen's equipment worked. His knives were still sharp. His rope was still strong. His smoke powder didn't need electricity to function. For a moment, nobody moved. They just stared at their dead equipment in shock. Then reality crashed down on them. Enemy forces poured from the fortress. But they weren't carrying energy weapons or plasma rifles. They had projectile weapons, old-fashioned guns that used chemical explosions to fire metal bullets, weapons specifically designed to work in an environment where electronics failed. The enemy had been ready for this. They'd been waiting. Bullets started hitting the rocks around the team. Chips of stone exploded into the air. The sound of gunfire echoed across the volcanic landscape. "Move!" Halrix shouted, but he couldn't move himself. His armor held him in place like a statue. Bros tried to run, but his legs didn't work right without computer assistance. He stumbled and fell. Kara raised her useless rifle, then dropped it and pulled a sidearm. She managed 2 shots before realizing that weapon was dead too. Yuna tried to form an energy shield, but her projector was just metal and plastic now. A bullet passed through where the shield should have been and nearly struck her core. Owen moved. No hesitation, no panic, just action. He grabbed a clay container from his pack and hurled it at the ground between them and the enemy. It shattered and released a thick cloud of smoke. The white cloud billowed out, blocking the enemy's line of sight. "Everyone back!" Owen's voice cut through the chaos. "Behind the boulders now." He grabbed Halrix's arm and pulled. The commander was heavy in his locked armor, but Owen knew how to use leverage. He dragged the reptilian behind a large rock formation. Yuna drifted back under her own power, her light form flickering with fear. Kara helped Bros retreat. Priya managed to unlock her boots and flew to cover on her natural wings. The smokescreen gave them precious seconds. Enemy forces advanced cautiously, unwilling to charge blindly into unknown terrain. Owen pulled out a small bag and scattered its contents across the ground behind them as they retreated. Metal caltrops, each one with 4 sharp points arranged so that one always faced upward. Simple, ancient, and devastatingly effective. The team found shelter in a shallow cave entrance. Bullets ricocheted off the rocks around them. They were pinned down, completely exposed, and the enemy was closing in. "What just happened?" Kara gasped, checking weapon after weapon and finding them all dead. Electromagnetic pulse combined with a sustained magnetic field, Bros said, his voice shaking. "They used ancient technology we didn't scan for. It's generating a field that disrupts all modern electronics within range." "How long until our equipment comes back online?" Halrix demanded. He was breathing hard from the exertion of trying to move in his frozen armor. "It won't," Priya said quietly. "Not while we're in this field. The magnetic interference is too strong. Everything with a circuit is useless. We're defenseless," Yuna whispered. "No," Owen said firmly. He was taking inventory of what they had. "We're not defenseless. We're just equal now." He started pulling items from his pack. Knives, rope, more smoke containers, throwing stars, a small crossbow that folded out from what looked like a simple wooden rod. "What can those possibly do against dozens of armed soldiers?" Kara asked, but her voice had lost its mocking tone. Now she just sounded scared. "Keep you alive if you listen to me." The enemy forces were getting closer. Owen heard their footsteps, their shouted commands, the click of weapons being prepared. Then he heard screams. The enemy had reached the caltrops. Simple metal spikes piercing through boot soles. It wouldn't stop them long, but it slowed their advance. Halrix looked at Owen with new eyes. "Can you get us out of here?" "Your gear was better than mine," Owen said, quickly distributing his backup weapons among the team. "But it only works when it works. My gear works always." He handed Kara a knife. "Stay close and quiet. Don't use this unless absolutely necessary." Bros received a smaller blade suited for his size. "Watch where I step and move exactly where I move." Yuna got a short staff. "If someone gets close, strike here or here." Owen pointed to specific points on a diagram he quickly sketched in the dust. Those spots hurt any organic being. Priya received rope and climbing gear. You can fly, so you'll be our scout. But stay low and use terrain for cover. What about me? Halrix was still trapped in his armor. Owen pulled out a specialized tool, something between a pry bar and a wrench. He started working on the armor's manual release catches, features that most people forgot were even there. Your people designed this armor well, Commander. It has mechanical overrides for exactly this situation, but you have to know where to look. As Owen worked to free Halrix from his own equipment, the enemy regrouped outside the cave entrance. They'd be coming in force soon. Without energy shields, without powered armor, without smart weapons, the team was facing an enemy that outnumbered them and knew this terrain. Owen freed Halrix's right arm. The commander flexed his claws, feeling natural movement for the first time in hours. I trained my whole life to use technology, Halrix said quietly. I don't know how to fight without it. Owen freed the other arm and started on the leg locks. You're about to learn. Everyone is about to learn. The enemy advanced toward the cave entrance. Owen finished freeing Halrix and turned to face the darkness. He spoke to his team, these people who had mocked his primitive gear just yesterday. Forget everything you know about modern combat. For the next few hours, you're going to fight the way humans fought for thousands of years. With simple tools, basic strategy, and determination. I'll teach you what you need to know. But you have to trust me.
Can you do that?
4 alien faces and 1 human looked back at him. They were terrified, out of their element, and completely dependent on someone they'd considered a liability. Halrix nodded slowly. Teach us. Owen allowed himself a small smile. Then let's give them a lesson they won't forget. The cave went deeper than it first appeared. Owen led them through darkness lit only by chemical light sticks he carried. No batteries, just simple chemical reactions that glowed for hours. Behind them, the enemy searched the entrance but seemed hesitant to pursue into the unknown depths. Why aren't they following? Priya whispered. Because they can't see and hear any better than we can, Owen replied. Their night vision equipment is dead too. They're waiting for us to come out or for daylight to make entry safer. The cave eventually opened into a larger chamber with 3 exits. Owen stopped and set down his pack. The team gathered around him, exhausted and frightened. We need to move soon, Kara said. Every minute we wait, they bring more forces. Wrong, Owen said gently. Every minute we wait, we learn. Rushing got us into this situation. Patience will get us out. He reached into his pack and pulled out what looked like a simple mirror attached to a stick. He extended it toward one of the cave exits and angled it carefully. What are you doing? Bros asked, looking around the corner without exposing myself. See? He let Bros look. The insectoid's compound eyes widened as he saw the reflected image of the tunnel beyond. That's so simple, Bros said with something like wonder in his voice. The best tools usually are. Owen checked each tunnel exit with the mirror. This one leads back toward the fortress. This one goes deeper into the cave system. This one angles toward where we need to go. How do you know where we need to go without computers? Halrix asked. Owen pointed to scratches on the wall. These walls have tool marks. This cave was widened by intelligent hands. And this tunnel has air movement. Feel that breeze? Air goes in, which means air comes out somewhere else. Probably a hidden exit the enemy doesn't guard. He pulled out more items from his pack and distributed them. We're going to move like shadows. That means quiet. That means slow. That means thinking before acting. I'm going to teach you the basics. For the next hour, Owen gave them a crash course in traditional infiltration techniques. He showed Yuna how to move silently despite her light form attracting attention. The solution was simple fabric wrappings that diffused her glow while still allowing her to function. He taught Kara how to step so her boots made no sound. Heel, roll 2, slow and deliberate. Test the ground before committing your weight. Bros learned to move all 4 arms in coordination rather than letting them swing freely and hit things. Owen made him practice walking through a narrow passage without touching the sides. Priya already understood quiet flight from her species' hunting traditions, but Owen taught her to use the terrain. Stay near walls. Don't silhouette yourself against openings. Think 3-dimensionally. Halrix was the hardest to teach. The commander was used to power armor doing the work of stealth for him. Without it, his large frame and natural instincts made him noisy. You're fighting your body, Owen told him. Stop trying to move like you did in armor. Move like a predator. Your species hunted before it had technology, right? Halrix paused. Yes, in the deep forest of Scoria. Then move like that. Low, controlled, aware. Something shifted in the commander's posture. His movements became smoother, more natural. They practiced basic hand signals. Stop, wait, enemy, danger, move. Owen kept them simple and intuitive. No talking unless absolutely necessary, he instructed. Sound carries in caves, even whispers. Finally, he taught them the most important lesson. When we encounter the enemy, don't think about killing them. Think about avoiding them. Every fight we don't have is a fight we win. Stealth isn't about being brave. It's about being smart. They moved through the caves following Owen's lead. He navigated by feeling air currents, noting geological features and using his simple magnetic compass that needed no power source. Several times he stopped the group and had them wait while enemy search parties passed through adjacent tunnels. How do you know they're there? Yuna asked after the second time. Owen pointed to dust falling from the ceiling. Vibrations from footsteps. At least 5 soldiers moving in standard search pattern. Bross studied Owen with new appreciation. You're processing tactical data without computers. Just observation and analysis. Every soldier should be able to do this. Technology should assist, not replace basic skills. They reached a section where the tunnel narrowed to a tight squeeze. One by one they crawled through. Owen went first, testing the route. Then he guided each team member through, giving quiet instructions about where to place hands and feet. Beyond the squeeze, they found themselves on a ledge overlooking a massive underground chamber. Far below they could see the underside of the fortress. Machinery and support structures descended into the rock like metal roots. The schematics vault will be in the secure section, Halrix whispered. Central location, maximum protection. I see 5 guard posts, Priya reported, her predator eyes sharp even in low light. Owen studied the layout. We need a distraction, something that pulls their attention away from our entry point. He pulled out several items, a small metal device, some string, and a chemical light stick. In minutes he constructed something and handed it to Priya. Fly this to the far side of the chamber. Find a spot with good acoustics. When you reach it, pull this string and get back here fast. What will it do? Make noise. They'll investigate. While they do, we climb down. Priya took flight silently, a shadow against shadows. The team waited. Owen had them prepare climbing gear. Not anti-gravity boots or powered harnesses, just rope and basic technique. Hook this around your waist like this, he showed them. Control your descent with this hand. If you slip, the rope catches you. What if the rope breaks? Kara asked. Good rope doesn't break. Synthetic materials can degrade from heat or chemicals. This hemp rope has been used for climbing for thousands of years. It works. A loud clattering noise echoed from across the chamber, exactly what Owen's device was designed to do. Guards immediately moved to investigate the sound. Now, fast but controlled. Follow my path exactly. Owen went over the ledge first, descending with practiced ease. The others followed, clumsy but determined. Bross used all 4 arms to good effect once he understood the technique. Halrix's natural strength helped him control the descent despite his size. They reached a maintenance platform halfway down. Owen signaled a stop. A single guard remained below, not falling for the distraction. Owen moved to the edge of the platform and observed. He picked up a small stone and threw it in a carefully calculated arc. It clattered against metal far to the left. The guard turned and walked toward the sound. The team descended the rest of the way and entered a service corridor. The fortress interior was a maze of passages. Owen navigated by logic and observation. Airflow indicated main passages. Heat suggested power systems. Sound revealed occupied areas versus empty ones. They encountered a locked door. Bross immediately started looking for a computer terminal to hack, before remembering nothing electronic worked. Owen pulled out his lockpicks. Mechanical locks are actually easier. They have physical components that follow predictable patterns. He worked the picks with gentle precision. After 2 minutes, the lock clicked open. Incredible, Bross whispered. You manipulated the internal mechanisms by touch alone. It's not incredible. It's just practice. Inside, they found technical spaces filled with equipment. Owen led them through carefully, avoiding sightlines and potential noise sources. They moved like ghosts. Yuna stopped him once with a hand on his shoulder. She pointed to a wire stretched across the corridor at ankle height. A simple tripwire alarm, good eye. Owen nodded. He showed them how to step over it properly. They reached the vault section. Guards stood at the entrance, but their attention was focused outward, not inward. They didn't expect anyone to reach this far into their stronghold. Owen studied the situation. 2 guards, both armed, both alert. A direct fight would be noisy and attract reinforcements. He gestured to the team using the hand signals he'd taught them. Una would approach from the left, Kara from the right. Halrix would be ready to move in fast. Bros and Priya would watch for additional threats. Owen moved forward with 2 small ceramic balls in his hand. He threw them at the guards' feet. They shattered and released thick smoke. The guards coughed and stumbled back. The team moved in coordination. Una struck with her staff to the pressure points Owen had shown her. 1 guard dropped. Kara and Halrix took the second guard down together, using overwhelming force but controlled strikes that knocked him unconscious without killing. In 30 seconds, it was over. Both guards were neutralized. No alarms raised. "We're getting better at this," Kara said, breathing hard but smiling. They entered the vault room. The schematics were stored on isolated physical drives. No network connection to be corrupted or hacked. Owen examined the security. Another mechanical lock, more complex though. He studied it carefully, then began working his picks with intense concentration. The others kept watch. Priya stood by the door listening for approaching footsteps. Bros monitored the corridor with his natural senses, learning to trust his own observations. 10 minutes passed. Owen worked steadily, feeling each tumbler, understanding the lock's inner workings through touch and sound. Click. The vault opened. Inside they found data drives containing everything the enemy had developed. Halrix grabbed them and secured them in a protective case. "Now we just need to get out," Kara said. An alarm suddenly blared through the fortress. Not electronic, but a mechanical bell ringing with desperate urgency. "They found the unconscious guards," Owen said. "Everyone ready to move fast. This next part won't be quiet." Enemy soldiers poured into the corridors. The team ran through the fortress with the schematics secured in Halrix's protective case. Owen led them through service passages and maintenance spaces, always moving toward the outer walls. "We need to reach the extraction point," Halrix shouted over the alarm bells. 10 kilometers through hostile territory. "Can we make it?" Una asked, her light dimmed to conserve energy. "We don't have a choice," Owen replied. He threw another smoke bomb behind them as they ran. The pursuing soldiers slowed, coughing and confused. They burst through an exterior door and into the red volcanic landscape. Enemy forces were mobilizing everywhere. Lights swept the darkness. Soldiers formed search patterns. But Owen had already planned their escape route. He led them into a ravine system that cut through the volcanic rock like veins. The narrow passages provided cover and limited the enemy's ability to surround them. They ran for 2 kilometers before Owen called a halt. The team collapsed against the rocks, gasping for air. "We can't maintain this pace," Kara said between breaths. "They'll run us down. Then we slow them down." Owen was already moving along their back trail, setting traps. Simple tripwires connected to rocks balanced on ledges, pits covered with thin cloth and dust, more caltrops scattered in narrow sections. Bros watched him work. "You're creating obstacles using basic physics and their own momentum against them." "Exactly. We don't need to stop them. Just slow them enough to stay ahead." 20 minutes later, they heard the first trap spring. Angry shouts echoed from behind them. Then another trap. Then another. "It's working," Priya said with amazement. They're being more cautious, checking every step. They moved through the night, always staying just ahead of pursuit. Owen taught them as they went. How to mask their scent using volcanic mud and local plants. How to create false trails that led search parties in wrong directions. How to move across rock without leaving obvious tracks. Near dawn, they stopped at a defensive position where 3 ravines met. Owen studied the terrain with the eye of someone who understood battlefields. "They're going to catch up soon," he said. "We need to be ready to fight." He positioned each team member carefully. Halrix at the choke point with a club made from a metal pipe. His natural strength didn't need power armor when properly directed. Bros up high where he could drop rocks on anyone entering the ravine. Kara and Una with Owen's spare knives and throwing stars. Learning to aim and throw with increasing accuracy. "Remember what I taught you," Owen said. "Control the terrain. Make them come to you. Use their numbers against them in tight spaces." The enemy arrived an hour later. A dozen soldiers advancing carefully, weapons ready. They entered the ravine where Owen's team waited. Bros dropped the first rock. It crashed down and scattered 3 soldiers. They weren't killed, but they were disoriented and separated from their unit. Halrix charged forward with a roar that sounded like ancient Scorian warriors. He swung his makeshift club with devastating force. His movements were raw but effective. No refined technique, just pure predator instinct unleashed. Yuna had learned to use her staff not just as a weapon, but as leverage. She struck joints, used opponents' weight against them, moved with a grace that surprised everyone. Kara discovered she was naturally talented with thrown weapons. Years of smart gun targeting had trained her eye. Now that skill translated to manual throwing. Her accuracy was remarkable. Priya swooped and dove, distracting enemies and creating openings for others to exploit. Owen moved through the fight like water. He never seemed to be where the enemy aimed. His strikes were precise, targeting weak points and pressure points with surgical accuracy. Each movement flowed into the next without wasted motion. The fight lasted 5 minutes. When it ended, the enemy soldiers retreated, carrying their wounded. The team had won their first real engagement using primitive weapons and basic tactics. "We did it," Kara said, staring at the knife in her hand like she'd never seen it before. "We actually did it." "You're starting to understand," Owen said. "Technology amplifies skill, but skill exists without technology." They continued toward the extraction point. The sun rose higher, turning the volcanic landscape into an oven. Owen rationed water carefully and taught them to conserve energy through proper breathing and pacing. Enemy forces kept harassing them. Small groups that attacked and retreated. Owen countered by never staying in one place long enough to be pinned down. He used mobility and unpredictability as weapons. By midday, they could see the extraction point in the distance. The transport ship sat exactly where they'd left it. But enemy forces had found it too. At least 30 soldiers surrounded the area. "We can't fight that many," Halrix said. "Not with these weapons." "Then we don't fight them," Owen replied. "We make them fight each other." He explained his plan. It was risky and required perfect timing, but everyone had learned to trust Owen's tactical instincts. They split into 3 groups. Halrix and Bros circled west. Kara and Yuna went east. Owen and Priya approached from the south with the schematics. Owen created noisemakers from materials scavenged along the way. Simple devices that would produce sound when triggered. He positioned them carefully around the enemy perimeter. At his signal, all the noisemakers activated at once. Sounds came from multiple directions. The enemy forces split up to investigate, confused and disorganized. That's when the team moved. They converged on the transport from 3 directions, catching the remaining guards in a crossfire of thrown weapons and coordinated strikes. The guards never had a chance to organize a proper defense. They reached the ship. Priya immediately started examining the systems with Owen looking over her shoulder. "The electromagnetic pulse damaged the control circuits," she said. "Everything needs to be rerouted through manual backups." "Show me the schematics," Owen said. She pulled them up on a manual display that required no computer processing. Together they worked. Priya understood the systems. Owen understood mechanical solutions. Between them, they jury-rigged bypasses for the damaged electronics. It wasn't elegant, but it would work. Enemy reinforcements were approaching. The team could see dust clouds in the distance marking their advance. "How long?" Halrix asked, standing guard with his club ready. 5 minutes, Priya replied, her hands working frantically. "We might not have 5 minutes." Kara watched the approaching enemy. "Then we buy time." Owen grabbed his remaining weapons and positioned the team in a defensive formation around the ship. The enemy arrived in force. This wasn't a patrol or small unit. This was an army. Hundreds of soldiers with heavy weapons and tactical discipline. Owen looked at his team. These people who had mocked him days ago, these soldiers who had thought their technology made them invincible. They were tired, dirty, injured, and armed with primitive weapons, but they were ready to fight. "Form up," Halrix commanded. "Protect that ship." They held the line. Bros used tactics he'd learned from watching Owen, creating defensive positions from available terrain. Yuna moved with confidence, her staff a blur. Kara's throwing accuracy kept enemies at distance. Halrix fought with savage effectiveness. Owen was everywhere at once, supporting weak points, creating distractions. His smoke bombs covered retreats. His thrown weapons struck with perfect accuracy. The ship's engines whined to life behind them. "We're ready," Priya shouted. "Everyone aboard," Halrix ordered. "Fighting retreat." They backed toward the ship step by step. Owen threw his last smoke bombs to cover their withdrawal. The team scrambled up the boarding ramp, Enemy fire intensified. Bullets pinged off the ship's hull. Owen was the last to board. He stood at the top of the ramp for one moment, looking at the army arrayed against them. Then he gave them a small bow, just a slight incline of his head, a gesture of respect between warriors. The ramp closed. The ship lifted off with enemy fire chasing it into the sky. They climbed toward orbit, leaving Redstone's electromagnetic field behind. As they cleared the magnetic interference, equipment started to come back online. Screens flickered to life. Systems rebooted. Technology returned. Una looked at her plasma rifle as it hummed back to full power. Then she looked at the simple staff Owen had given her. She placed both weapons side by side. "I think I'll keep this," she said, touching the staff. As a reminder, Kara checked her smart gun, then the throwing knives she still carried. "These too. You never know when technology might fail again." Bros ran diagnostics on his computers while cleaning the simple blade Owen had given him. Redundancy in systems is tactically sound. Primitive backups serve a clear purpose. Halrix removed his fully functional armor and looked at it thoughtfully. "I fought better without it today than I ever have with it. I think I forgot what my own strength felt like." Priya made final course corrections toward the jump point. "I'm going to redesign our equipment protocols. Manual backups for everything. Simple alternatives to every complex system." Owen sat quietly, cleaning and maintaining his gear. The same routine he'd performed 1,000 times. Each blade sharpened. Each tool inspected. Each item returned to its proper place. Halrix sat down beside him. "I owe you an apology, we all do. You tried to tell us that your equipment had value. We didn't listen." "You listened when it mattered," Owen replied. "That's what counts. Will you teach us more? Properly, I mean. Not just survival lessons in the field." Owen smiled. "I'd be honored, Commander." The Vanguard jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying them home with their mission complete and hard lessons learned. Station Atlas 9 looked exactly the same as when they'd left. Gleaming metal and floating advertisements. Ships coming and going in organized patterns. Technology everywhere you looked. But Owen saw it differently now. He understood that all this advancement was built on foundations that could crack. The team walked through the corridors toward the debriefing center. Other operatives stared at them. They looked rough. Dirty uniforms. Improvised weapons hanging from their belts alongside reactivated advanced gear. They had the appearance of soldiers who'd been through something that changed them. Commander Halrix submitted his report to Coalition Command in person. Owen sat outside the office with the rest of the team, while senior officers reviewed what had happened on Redstone. Through the translucent door, Owen could see Halrix gesturing emphatically. The commander's voice rose several times, though the words were muffled. Other officers looked skeptical. One pointed at data displays showing standard equipment failure rates. Another brought up training protocols. Halrix slammed his clawed hand on the table. That got their attention. When the commander emerged 2 hours later, he looked tired but satisfied. "They're listening. Slowly, but they're listening." The team was awarded the Coalition Star of Valor 3 days later. The ceremony took place in a large hall filled with dignitaries, officers, and soldiers from 100 worlds. Owen stood with his team as medals were placed around their necks. Halrix spoke first when they were asked to address the assembled crowd. "We succeeded because we adapted. Because one member of our team understood that true strength comes from versatility, not dependency. That reliability sometimes matters more than capability. That the oldest solutions can be the best solutions." Bros presented his statistical analysis to the Technical Council. "I have calculated that 19% of Coalition missions in the past 5 years took place in environments with significant electromagnetic interference. Current equipment failure rates in such environments approach 47%. The integration of low-technology backup systems and training could reduce mission failures by 32%. Numbers convinced the tacticians where words might have failed. Committees were formed to study the recommendations. Priya worked with engineers to develop new equipment standards. Every plasma rifle would have a mechanical projectile backup. Every powered armor suit would include manual release catches that soldiers actually knew how to use. Every soldier's pack would carry basic tools that needed no power source. "We're not abandoning technology," she explained to anyone who asked. "We're making it more resilient by acknowledging its limitations." Una requested assignment to Owen's unit for future missions. Other operatives did the same. Word had spread through the station about what happened on Redstone. Some dismissed it as luck. Others recognized it as a lesson they needed to learn. Owen found himself approached by young soldiers who wanted to understand his methods. He started holding informal training sessions in a cargo bay converted to practice space. He taught them to move quietly, to observe carefully, to think tactically without computer assistance. Different species adapted the techniques to their own physiology. The insectoids learned to use their multiple limbs for climbing and grappling in ways that surprised everyone. Energy beings discovered they could dim their light and move through shadows. Reptilians found their predatory instincts were actually advantages when they stopped relying on sensors to do their thinking. A formal request came from Coalition Command 6 weeks later. They wanted Owen to develop a training program that would be integrated into standard operative preparation, not to replace existing training but to supplement it. Owen sat in a planning room with a dozen senior officers and training specialists. They expected him to be intimidated. Instead, he spread his canvas pack on the table and started pulling out items. "This is a knife," he said, holding up a simple blade. "It cuts. It pries. It digs. It defends. It requires no power. It doesn't break unless you use it wrong. It works in any environment. Every soldier should know how to use one properly." He pulled out rope. "This lifts, lowers, binds, and secures. It's been doing those jobs for thousands of years. Yes, anti-gravity is better when it works, but this never fails to work." One by one he explained each tool, not as relics but as proven solutions to common problems. He demonstrated techniques that were old when most of the species in the room were still living in caves on their homeworlds. "The goal isn't to make everyone a ninja," Owen said. "The goal is to make everyone capable when their first option fails. Because technology will fail. Maybe not often, maybe not predictably, but it will fail. And when it does, soldiers need to know they can still complete their mission." The program was approved. Owen spent the next 3 months developing curriculum, training instructors, and adapting ancient human techniques for alien physiologies. It was exhausting work, but he found it rewarding in ways combat never was. Halrix visited him one evening in the training center. The commander watched Owen practicing his forms, moving through precise techniques that looked like a deadly dance. "I've been thinking about that day we met," Halrix said. "When you unpacked your equipment and we all laughed. I was so certain that newer meant better. That advancement was always forward, never looking back." "Technology is advancement," Owen replied, continuing his practice. "I'm not arguing against it, but you're arguing for balance. I'm arguing for wisdom. My grandfather used to say that a warrior with only one weapon is vulnerable. The strongest fighter is the one with the most options." Halrix nodded slowly. "Your grandfather sounds like he was a wise human." "He was. He taught me that these techniques survived for centuries because they work. Not because people couldn't think of something better, but because sometimes you can't improve on simple reliability." A notification came through on Halrix's communicator. He read it and smiled. "New mission assignment. High-risk environment with expected electronic countermeasures. They're requesting our team specifically. When do we leave?" 2 days. Briefing tomorrow morning." Owen finished his practice form and bowed slightly, the traditional ending gesture. "I'll be ready. I know you will. We all will. Thanks to you." The next morning, Owen packed his gear carefully. Each blade was sharpened. Each tool was checked. Everything had its place in the canvas pack that had traveled with him from Earth. But now his pack sat alongside Halrix's advanced equipment on the preparation table. Both were treated with equal respect. Both were considered necessary. The briefing revealed they'd be infiltrating an enemy research station located inside a nebula with naturally occurring electromagnetic storms. High-tech equipment would be unreliable. Backup systems and manual alternatives would be essential. Based on previous mission experience, Halrix told the assembled team, "We're bringing redundant capabilities, high-tech primary systems, low-tech backup systems, and the training to use both effectively." The team included new members now. A heavy worlder named Grath, who carried both a plasma cannon and a massive war club. A scout named Whisper, whose species had natural camouflage but now also carried smoke bombs and distraction devices. An engineer named Torres, who could fix anything electronic, but also knew how to use hand tools and mechanical systems. Owen noticed they all carried at least one knife, one length of rope, and basic supplies that needed no power. Small additions to their loadouts, but significant ones. They boarded the ship together. The cargo hold contained their equipment, a mixture of cutting-edge technology and tools that hadn't changed in millennia. Nobody laughed at the combination anymore. During the flight, Owen held training sessions. He taught Grath how proper leverage could multiply his already impressive strength. He showed Whisper how to combine natural abilities with traditional stealth techniques. He worked with Torres on mechanical problem-solving approaches. "Why does this matter so much to you?" Torres asked during a break. "Teaching us these old methods?" Owen thought about his grandfather's training hall. The smell of wood and steel. The patient instruction in techniques passed down through generations. Because humans spent thousands of years figuring out how to survive with limited resources and simple tools. That knowledge shouldn't be lost just because we now have better options. Sometimes the best way forward requires remembering what worked in the past. The mission itself went smoothly. The electromagnetic storms did disrupt their technology, exactly as predicted, but this time the team was ready. They switched to backup systems without panic. They used manual tools effectively. They combined high-tech and low-tech approaches seamlessly. They completed the objective with 0 casualties and full mission success. On the return journey, Halrix found Owen in the observation deck looking out at the stars. "Command is pleased with the results," the commander said. "They want to expand the training program to all coalition forces. You'll need to train more instructors." "I can do that. They're also offering you a promotion, senior tactical instructor with permanent station assignment." Owen was quiet for a moment. "I appreciate the offer, but I prefer field work." "I thought you might say that." Halrix's expression was amused. "How about this, then? You continue to lead missions with our team and train new operatives between assignments. Best of both roles." "That I can accept." They stood together watching stars stream past. Two very different beings from very different worlds, bonded by shared experience and mutual respect. "You changed how I see combat," Halrix said quietly. "How I see strength. I was trained to believe that technology made us superior to our ancestors. That progress meant leaving old ways behind. And now I understand that progress means learning from everything, old and new. That wisdom comes from understanding when to use advanced tools and when to rely on simple ones. That the measure of a warrior isn't what equipment they carry, but what they can accomplish when that equipment fails." Owen smiled. "My grandfather would have liked you, Commander. He always said the best student is the one who questions their teacher. Did you question him?" "Constantly. That's how I learned which lessons were truly important." Another mission briefing came through days after they returned to Station Atlas 9. Another team requesting Owen's expertise. Then another. Word had spread not just through their station, but through the entire coalition fleet. The human with the primitive gear had proven something that advanced civilizations needed to remember. That sophistication has its place, but so does simplicity. That the newest technology is powerful, but the oldest techniques are eternal. That true preparedness means having options at every level. Owen continued teaching, continued training, continued leading missions. His canvas pack became famous throughout coalition forces. Young operatives saw it as a symbol not of backwardness but of wisdom, of being ready for anything, of understanding that the best tool is the one that works when you need it most. Years later, when historians studied the integration of traditional human combat techniques into coalition military doctrine, they would point to Owen Reeves as the catalyst, the quiet human who reminded an advanced galactic civilization that sometimes the most important progress is remembering what you've forgotten. But Owen never thought of himself as anyone special. He was just a soldier who learned from his grandfather, who practiced ancient techniques because they worked, who carried simple tools because they were reliable, who understood that being advanced meant having options, not abandoning proven methods. In a galaxy obsessed with the next breakthrough, Owen represented something equally valuable: continuity with the past, wisdom from experience, and the understanding that true strength comes from versatility rather than dependency. His legacy wasn't the technology he rejected, but the balance he demonstrated. The recognition that humans brought something unique to the galactic community, not through their newest inventions, but through their oldest traditions. And somewhere, in the memory of every soldier who trained in both high-tech systems and low-tech alternatives, Owen's grandfather smiled. His teachings had traveled from a small training hall on Earth to military bases across the galaxy, proving that some lessons are truly timeless.